On Wednesday, June the 24th, 2026, and I posted anachronism number 5108. It's called The Whole Entire Quote. For the record, anyway, it goes this way. It is easy to be beautiful. It is difficult to appear so. I admire you, beloved, for the trap you've set. It's like a final chapter no one reads because the plot is over. Frank O'Hara from Meditations on an Emergency. That is how I just typed it up anyway. Given my current vision and need for a pair of glasses, it could be a bit off, which is of course saying something, but these days is really saying something, and that's not a good thing to say, as in no way. Nevertheless, getting to the gist of it is what I suppose I want at this point to relay. So to my eyes, that's the way it reads in my Donald Allen edited O'Hara Selected. And let's also say that I am taking this stanza, this paragraph, completely as if it were and couldn't it easily be, standalone? As something profound unto itself, but beauty, pah! Trying to envision these words without attempting to look through the eyes of the poet is something, but it is not easy. It starts out to be quite a feat, especially because they would mean something so very different than if the words had come from me, and surely different from what you might come to, I suppose, if one supposes such things. His, I assume, might have been some kind of almost universal ideal, but based in reality, upon those he knew, an attainable one ideal. He no doubt had one or two candidates in mind with whom he was well acquainted. Idealist that he was, it would have been a cinch for him to have conjured up one of his muses. I'm no scholar, I just have a big awkward movement in that area, which, without picking up anything except, again, this particular selected, has me thinking O'Hara had in mind as representative of beautiful that New York school muse that we would often see him dipping his metaphorical ink into, Jane Freilicher. Or it could be any number of such muses. But Jane, the New York school muse. But O'Hara was gay, I might point out, as I do, and surely others have made a note of this as well. Or have they? This is how much I am not a scholar. I've made it loud and clear so often over the years that he's my favorite poet out of all of them. Yes, the audacity, and I stand by it. Oh, if I could even be a smidge as dishy and pithy and have even a tenth of whatever must have generally floated around behind that tall young forehead. So beauty, back when it meant something, perhaps towards the tail end of when it might have. Just add that, as if it were something that we knew. But those three sentences, that singular paragraph, I love to imagine that final word, over, as it stands by itself on its own line, as intentional enjambment. Form might have been something that was beginning to also lose meaning by this time, which I say as if it means something, but as far as I can tell, scholar that I ain't, it still was a veritable ruler, a stick that might be shoved up something, and surely often and even today, sometimes happily, someplace. It seems so. And would he not have appreciated the word that just came to my mind? Ineffectual. But a philosophical bent seems clear to me in that he wrote his ideals upon his sleeves, if you ask me. He wore his ideals upon his sleeves, if you ask me. But why would you? And he was gay, so any concept of beauty he goes on to reduce in whatever way gets fractured in so many ways, so many of the ways and means of beauty, at least to this small reader, when it comes to how to interpret what the writer literally meant when he wrote the word. But the simplicity of how those three sentences can, for me, indeed, conjure, perhaps in pieces and parts deliberately, Dr. Franken, haphazard together, building someone in particular I've never met, or just as easily suggesting a particular half dozen or more with whom I am at least acquainted. How easy that lovely paragraph can mean. And if that is what happens when I read it, it would likely be just as magical to anyone else who does. Try it. You can, you know. Let me know if it works. If so, Just look how many of us are getting presently all bent out of shape, getting giddy within our own recollections or collections, our own selections conjured from just a few lines in this particular selected poem by my favorite poet of all time. I will keep being on the record just to say that much. A quote that appears in one of my favorite poems by him, Meditations on an Emergency. I mean, call 911. Who else but the man who not only put New York City on the postmodern map, but turned it into an ideal, a place in which I've never lived, have but taken up space within for no longer than a week or two at a time. Such beauty. Oh, shucks. Really? But yet, from a distance, of all the vast expanses from him and his words to hear, he can yet today have an unscholarly hick sitting in San Francisco seeing beauty, as if truly knowing, seeing it appear before him in CinemaScope, loud and clear, and that sincere.